Hey everyone, this is Chris with HashRelay.net, and today we're bringing you another end of the day market update. But first, an update on Binance. So as you know, Binance has restricted trading, or actually they have halted trading to sync their data with the new update. They had some technical issues apparently, and there was some hack FUD going around. But the CEO of Binance has come out and made statements. They're keeping people up to date. Last post was 42 minutes ago. You're using 3 different methods to recover the data while syncing. The first one is an hour or two, or I guess that was an hour ago, so that one could be done now or in an hour. Method 2 was 5 hours, and method 3 was 9 hours. Regardless, they have halted trading until tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. UTC time. So, Binance has not been hacked, but they have halted trading until tomorrow morning. So if we look at CoinMarketCap, we can see that the global market is at about $389 billion. The daily volume is $24.6 billion. Bitcoin dominance has dropped a few tenths of a percentage point, but still holding on to that 35% of market dominance. The price is still around $8,000. Ethereum's still around $800. There's been a bit of uncertainty in the markets today, over the past couple days, maybe. And a lot of this is good news from Washington with the congressional hearing. Some of it's bad news from fake China FUD, fake Binance news, fake Binance hack news, actual Binance closure for now. Short-term closure. That's definitely impacted the market some. But we can see over the week we've had a fairly volatile few days. Over the course of a month, we can see that there's been a pretty significant decline. But we are leveling out here at the end after what we can hope to be the last of the market crash, if you believe all the hype. And if we go to on-chain FX, we can see that fewer coins are above that 50% down from all-time high. Lisk is doing quite well, up 17% for the day. Some other coins doing fairly well. Ethereum Classic 16%. Bitcoin Cash 27%. Qtum 25%. Bitcoin Gold 25%. So we are definitely seeing some positive movements in certain sectors of the crypto market, and that's a good sign. Hopefully the rest will start to see something close to improvements of that scale. If we go over to the charts, we can see that today's candle is starting off a bit red. We've dipped a little lower even. Thank you, TradingView. We did flatten out on the MACD. We are still shortening the bars on our histogram though, so the divergence is still short. We did get a bit of a pull down on the RSI, a little further away from the 40 line. So we're going to want to see some flattening out or some positive movements throughout this candle. But likely, with the uncertainty in the market, we can probably expect to trade sideways. Now I am concerned about the double top forming here because the trend recently for double tops of this in this time frame here has been quite negative. So if this follows the pattern for the past month or two, then this could actually be kind of a bearish signal. So we'll have to watch that to be sure. If we move over to Ethereum, it typically tracks with Bitcoin fairly well. We can see that we are nearing this downtrend line, which is a good sign. If we pulled down farther from it, that might be a slightly more bearish sign, but we are still fairly close. The the MACD is still fairly divergent from these orange line. The histogram still has some fairly long negative bars. But the RSI sort of flattened out, maybe a tiny downtrend, but with the size of the body of this candle, I don't think that it'd be too much of a negative impact so long as it can break through this downtrend line. Now if we go to Litecoin, again, this has been tracking the market fairly well for the past few days. Like Ethereum, it's getting pretty close to this downtrend line bar here. Do have quite a ways to go before we hit this uptrend line, which is a good sign. Another good sign is the MACD. Looks like it's about to cross over. We're going to test that first. It hasn't tested in quite a while, so hopefully it can manage to go onto the upside. The RSI looks quite a bit like Ethereum and Bitcoin. A tiny dip down, mostly flattening though. So we're looking for more confirmation between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin for sure. Moving to Neo, we can see that it still wasn't able to gain any ground on that previous all-time high resistance line. It met and has come back down. Though today's candle is looking quite a bit stronger than yesterday's candle, and we are still mostly at the top of this uptrend, so we're looking good there. We're still pretty narrow here on the MACD, and we've got a fairly flat histogram there. And the RSI has a nice curve going in a northerly direction, which would be great. It's just over that 60 mark. We're looking for it to get to the 70 again. For Steam, we see that we're trending right on to the uptrend line, or consolidating right on up to this uptrend line. And we've got some positive growth for today, so that's bringing the MACD closer into this yellow line, keeping the divergence fairly minimal. We can see on the RSI we've got a nice hook up, so we'd like to see that trend continue on to the 70, obviously. Some flattening out in the histogram. So fairly positive for Steam, I think. If we look at Komodo, much like Steam, we've got a fairly good sized green candle for the day, and that is pushing this MACD closer to that yellow line. We still want to see it probably consolidate towards this intersection, which will give us an indication of where the price is likely to go. We'd like to see it at best trend along this uptrend line, breaking through this downtrend line in a nice steady growth. We can see that the RSI is making its nice little curve up towards that 50 line, which is definitely a good sign. If it can hang out right along this 50 line, it'll be in good position. There's a lot of strength here along this center line of the RSI. but we would like to see more positive growth. Vertcoin, which has recently taken a beating, is in its fourth green bar for the week. That blue line on the MACD's finally crossed over that yellow in a very positive trend. We've got our second positive bar on the histogram. We're seeing a much wider curve on the RSI to the north. We have almost reached that 50 line, which is going to be a really good sign. And hopefully, with this candle, possibly tomorrow's candle, we can break through this downtrend line, and then we can start working on these many layers of resistance that Vertcoin has built up over the past few months. QuantStamp is continuing to do fairly well. It shows a little bit of weakness in yesterday's bar, being a doji candle, kind of a spinning top with a little bit of a body in there. But being green is still positive, and today's green gone up even more. Still plenty of room on this uptrend line, and we've touched on this downtrend line, so if we can test it again here, that would be great. If we could break through it, obviously it would be perfect. Here we've almost come to an intersection on the MACD, and we can see a pretty good uptrend coming on this histogram. We have finally crossed over the 50 line for the RSI. Nice, fairly flat, positive movement there, so we should see some, at very least, some gradual increase over the next couple of days, which would bring us right in line with this downtrend. If we move over to Lumen, they haven't been performing too great over the past couple of days, but we can see they started off in a green bar today. They are cruising up this uptrend line fairly well. So we're going to want to see them continue up this path into this intersection, and then they can go ahead and break through that downtrend line if they want. Seeing a straight divergence on the MACD and kind of flat on the histogram there. Get a little bit of an uptick closer to that 50 line for the lumens. We'd like to see it get back to that point so that we can continue positive growth. Now I've added a few more coins here. I've already put in the uptrend lines. First we'll look at Cardano. Cardano actually did fairly well through most of the dip, and then it finally met its fate with all the rest. And honestly, it stayed fairly flat throughout, so not too bad. It didn't come back to this 2,500 Satoshi mark, which would have put it in line with the corrections of everything else. Here we can see it's met, or I guess this is a pretty short-term uptrend line here. Came off of this doji candle here. We're going to meet that. You know, these two downtrend lines are concerning because this builds a channel in which it can trade in a negative fashion, so we want to see it push through this outer uptrend line if at all possible. And we definitely don't want to see it break through this uptrend line. We have a long downward slope on this MACD, but the divergence hasn't been too far. It stayed pretty narrow here. As you can see, they're pretty short bars on this histogram. But the RSI shows a pretty good tale of where the price movement has been. It's been steadily down over the past month or so. We might be getting a little bit of a flattening out, but we definitely want to see it hook back up to this 50 line as usual. ELF is actually a newer coin, and so these trend lines are by default going to be more short-term trend lines, if I can get them where I want them. So we can see I have actually skipped this wick here, because otherwise it would be a mostly flat downtrend line, and that doesn't actually show us the real story of the past couple of weeks movement. So we're seeing a good downtrend in the price of ELF, being a fairly new crypto. It hasn't had a whole lot of volatility as of yet, Started out pretty strong, well above the MACD here, and you can see some good growth in each of these candles. And so we want to see that kind of trend return. And since we're trending along this downtrend line, we've got a double top here, which isn't exactly a positive thing, but if we can break through this uptrend line, then we should consolidate a little further. If at all possible, we can come up and test this uptrend line, but that's a pretty significant movement, which I'm not ruling out considering the size of these bars, but we'll have to definitely get some more positive confirmation than we have. The RSI is sitting right at that 50 line, but the divergence on the MACD is coming in a bit stronger. The lines on this histogram are getting a little bit longer. So over the next couple of days, we'll be able to tell what the real movement of ELF is going to be like along this trend line, but looking for some good growth. Poe is an interesting one. It has moved in about the same fashion as Cardano, more of a flat negative trend. Like most cryptocurrencies, it's also fairly new, and in its first couple of months it did quite well. But the market has taken its toll quite a bit. It hasn't lost all of its gains, but not too far away from that. It's been in a good consolidation period, slightly negative, but we're coming up to a more long-term uptrend line, which it's already tested once, and into this intersection, which this is a fairly steep or a fairly shallow downtrend line comparatively. So this shouldn't offer too much resistance. We can continue along this uptrend line and break through the downtrend line casually, and then make a nice upward momentum. Here we can see the MACD is fairly narrow, though still below this yellow line. We don't have too long of bars on the histogram, which we'd like to see them creep back up and over. That would be nice. The RSI looks like it's flattened out a bit, and as always, we'd like to see it come up to this 50 line. And the last coin on my list will be Sonum. So here you can see that we are breaking through this downtrend line here. We'd like to see this candle remain in the positive rather than dip into the negatives. If we can stay above this downtrend line, we should be good to come up and meet the second downtrend line, the more long-term one, which will offer some bit of resistance. But so long as we stay above this long-term uptrend line, we should be alright. It is going to have some additional resistance from this previous uptrend line, but we'll be alright. Here we can see the histogram is also pretty narrow, but negative. The MACD is pretty narrow. The histogram is pretty short. And the RSI is fairly flat. So likely we're just going to consolidate along this uptrend line until we get to this intersection. But breaking out of this downtrend line, this short-term downtrend line, definitely a good sign. Now, full disclosure, the reason I have added all of these coins here, I do have holdings in all of them, though, to be fair, I only have $160 put into this market, so I'm not playing with big boy dollars just yet. But these are the ones I have diversified my portfolio into. And having looked at all of these different companies briefly, and actually using a couple of them, I find them to be excellent in the fundamental level. Now, not all of them are going to be massive gainers in 2018, I don't think, but a lot of them have some exciting projects coming out. Ada should be releasing their platform soon. QuantStamp should be doing more smart contract audits. Komodo's releasing, or I should say, other businesses are releasing on the Komodo platform, and they are doing some strong upgrades there. More and more platforms are coming out on Neo, and that is fantastic. And as always, I've been posting on Steam for as long as I have YouTube, and I find the community in Steam to be fantastic. So I'm really excited to see these guys do really well over 2018, which, seeing the growth of use on Steam and DTube, I have no doubts that they're going to boom. So that's my positive news for today. If you guys found this helpful, go ahead and give me a like, share with all your friends, and go ahead and click that subscribe button and the little notification bell so that you're updated every time I post a new video. And for all of you on Steam, go ahead and follow me. I'll follow you back. And that's it for today's update. And as always, I'll talk to y'all later.